There are moments in history when nations reveal who they truly are, not through speeches, not through flags or slogans, but through what they build when the pressure is absolute and failure is not an option. During the Cold War, when the future of civilization hung by a thread and the world lived under the shadow of nuclear annihilation, the United States did something no other nation could even attempt. It did not merely respond to fear, it out-engineered it. It did not match its enemies, it surpassed them so completely that resistance became irrelevant. High above hostile territory, beyond the reach of missiles, beyond the limits of human imagination, an American aircraft flew with total impunity, detected, hunted, challenged, and never, ever stopped. This was not luck. This was dominance.
And its name was the SR-71 Blackbird. To understand the Blackbird is to understand the mindset of America at its most determined. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, intelligence was not a luxury, it was survival. Every missile silo, every troop movement, every radar installation could mean the difference between peace and nuclear fire. The United States needed eyes where no one wanted American eyes to be. At first, altitude seemed like the answer. The U-2 spy plane flew higher than any interceptor could reach, silently photographing the heart of the Soviet Union. For a brief moment, it worked. Then reality struck. In 1960, a U-2 was shot down. The pilot was captured. The wreckage was displayed. The world watched as America was reminded of a brutal truth. Yesterday's advantage is tomorrow's vulnerability. If the United States wanted to remain ahead, it could not evolve. It had to leap.
That leap was entrusted to a small group of engineers working in secrecy at Lockheed's Skunk Works, led by the legendary Clarence Kelly Johnson. These were not bureaucrats. They were problem solvers forged by pressure, men who believed that physics was not a barrier, but a challenge. The mission they were given bordered on madness. Build an aircraft that could fly so fast and so high that no weapon on Earth could ever reach it. Not evade it, not jam it, simply make interception impossible. The aircraft would not fight. It would deny the enemy the very ability to respond. This was American thinking at its most ruthless and most brilliant. What emerged from that effort looked like something pulled from the future. Long, sharp, black as night, the SR-71 did not resemble any aircraft before it. It was built around a single idea: speed as absolute defense.
Flying above 25 kilometers and at more than 3 times the speed of sound, the Blackbird operated in a realm where time itself worked against the enemy. Radar operators could see it, but by the time information moved up the chain of command, the aircraft was already gone. Missile crews could fire, but missiles were designed for targets that reacted. The SR-71 did not react. It simply continued forward, faster than consequence. This performance demanded sacrifices no other nation was willing or able to make. At Mach 3, air becomes a weapon. Temperatures soar high enough to weaken steel and warp aluminum. Conventional aircraft materials would fail, so America turned to titanium, a metal stronger than steel, lighter than aluminum, and nearly impossible to work with at scale. At the time, the United States didn't even have enough of it.
In one of the Cold War's greatest ironies, vast quantities of titanium were secretly acquired from the Soviet Union itself, unknowingly contributing to the aircraft that would spy on them for decades. It was a quiet victory before the first mission ever flew. On the ground, the Blackbird looked flawed, almost broken. Fuel leaked from its tanks, panels didn't sit flush, nothing seemed sealed. But this was not negligence, it was genius. At extreme speed, the aircraft heated so intensely that the metal expanded, sealing every joint perfectly in flight. The SR-71 was designed to be imperfect at rest and flawless in motion. Even its fuel defied expectations. JP-7 was so stable that fire could not easily ignite it. To start the engines, crews used triethylborane, a chemical that burst into a bright green flame on contact with air. Every startup was a reminder that this machine lived on the edge of possibility. Its engines were masterpieces in their own right. The Pratt & Whitney J58 engines blurred the line between jet and ramjet, using airflow itself as a primary source of thrust. At cruising speed, much of the engine's power came not from burning fuel, but from compressing air at unimaginable velocities. The faster the aircraft flew, the more efficient it became. This defied everything engineers had known before. The Blackbird was not fighting physics, it was exploiting it. And then there was the part that turned the aircraft into legend. Over its operational life, more than 4,000 missiles were fired at SR-71s. Not one ever hit. Pilots did not engage in dogfights.
They did not perform evasive maneuvers. When warned of a missile launch, the response was calm, almost routine: accelerate. Enemy interceptors like the MiG-25 and later the MiG-31 were built with one purpose: to stop the Blackbird. They failed, every time. The engagement window was simply too short. By the time interceptors climbed, the SR-71 had already passed through defended airspace and vanished. Despite its fearsome reputation, the Blackbird carried no weapons. Its power was knowledge. Cameras, side-looking radar, and electronic sensors allowed it to map hundreds of thousands of square kilometers in minutes. It flew over Vietnam, monitored the Middle East, tracked nuclear developments deep within the Soviet sphere.
In an age before reliable satellites, it delivered intelligence faster, safer, and more reliably than anything else on Earth. Decisions made in the White House and the Pentagon were shaped by images taken by an aircraft no enemy could stop. The records it set still stand as monuments to American ingenuity. Fastest manned jet aircraft ever flown. Highest sustained altitude for a jet aircraft. Coast-to-coast flights across the United States in barely more than an hour. New York to London in under 2. These were not publicity stunts. They were operational realities. The SR-71 did this routinely, quietly, without fanfare. But supremacy came at a cost. The Blackbird was demanding, unforgiving, and expensive. Every hour in the air required hundreds of hours of maintenance on the ground.
Accidents occurred not because of enemy fire, but because operating at the edge of physics leaves no room for error. As satellites improved and budgets tightened, the aircraft's role diminished. In 1998, the SR-71 was officially retired, not because it was obsolete, not because it was surpassed, but because the world no longer required such an extreme solution. And that is what makes its legacy so powerful. The SR-71 was never replaced. No direct successor ever entered service. Even today, decades later, no operational aircraft has matched its unique combination of speed, altitude, and survivability. Built with slide rules, drafting tables, and sheer human brilliance, it still looks futuristic. It stands as proof of what America can achieve when necessity meets ambition and fear meets confidence.
The Blackbird was more than an airplane. It was a declaration, a silent message sent across borders and through radar screens that said, "We are already ahead." In the most dangerous era humanity has ever known, the United States did not just defend itself, it mastered the sky, bent physics to its will, and built a machine so advanced that the world is still catching up. And that is why even today, the SR-71 Blackbird remains untouchable.